So this brings me, I want to bring it back into a little more about this idea of the personal erotic myth as the underpinning of someone with a fetish sexual identity. So I think I've explained a little bit about what the personal erotic myth is. It is a tool that I've developed to help people go deeper into discovering who they are. I have, on my website, you can go there and see it if you're interested. I encourage you even to take it, it might be interesting. A survey I have up called the Discover Your Personal Erotic Myth. And so far over 700 people have taken it. My goal this year, I just kind of launched it in a soft launch, and I'm hoping to launch it out further this year and get 10,000 responses so I can really start. My intention is to map this erotic unconscious that I've been speaking about in a more data-driven way, because there is data. Out of 700, I'm starting to get some data that is interesting to ponder and consider about what's going on in the sexual unconscious and what are people authentically desiring and how do they express it. And I spoke a little bit before about how these are in the unconscious and they don't show up until we get to a place where we're ready to be sexually authentic, right at that moment before orgasm. But this is a place where people can start to find this story and really map it out of, who's in that fantasy with them. These are tangible, real stories going on. If someone looks and drills down a little bit, they're going to start to, if they are fetish sexual anyway, they're going to come in contact with these mythic stories that are erotically intense and empowering and ecstatically and yearn to be expressed. And I look at them as even embodied, getting out of the way of the everyday persona. This part wants to come in. It knows exactly what to say, how to move, tone of voice, the expression. You don't have to write out a script. And this is what I make a distinction between what's generally called role-playing and embodiment of these mythic structures. Role-playing is like writing a script and just following a script. Embodiment of a dominant, you're dominant or you're submissive, whatever the case might be, if that's your orientation, isn't figuring it out or thinking about it, it's just letting it show up, and it knows how to take command if it's the dominant. If it's resolved, all the parts of it that says you're not a dominant. Because also this is what you will encounter. Anytime you step into your authentic sexuality, you're going to encounter all the parts that aren't. So for instance, if I'm saying, hey, I'm a dominant, I'm going to get right away, I'm going to run into somebody who's going to challenge that like crazy and push every button I got that it might feel like I'm weak or I'm not in control or I'm, so that's my inner psyche. All this stuff is going to show up, and we get an opportunity to start to untangle and sort out and separate out these parts of who we are encountering in our erotic unconscious. So this PEM, as I said, is something that you can start to get a grip on if you don't, so many people already know their personal erotic myth. They've known it since childhood even. And maybe that's just they've been active in it already. And other people it's a little vaguer. It's not uncommon for a client to come to me and I start talking to them about their desire, and I ask, so tell me more about your desire. What does it look like? And they say, I don't know. I just want to be taken. So that's a gateway to the inquiry. Okay, so taken by who? Where are you? What are you wearing? How did you get there? What are they saying to you? What are you saying back? What's their intensity? Etc. All those elements can show up just by that, I don't know, I want to be taken. If that's all they know, they can still start to open up to what's their truth there. So this is the place that people can start to go get this map, and I mentioned that, I'm trying to find some markers or keys to identifying someone as a fetish sexual. One because I get this from just about all my clients that I work with, they'll say something like, ever since I was 9, or ever since I was 8, or a little boy or a little girl, this has been going on. So because I heard that so much, I built that into my, this is one of the questions on the Personal Erotic Myth Survey. And as you can see, I don't know if you're surprised or not, but I was surprised, but also confirmed about how much our eros is alive in us even before puberty. So this is like self-reported. This is out of the 700 responses are not like a random survey selection. These are drawn from more sex-positive oriented populations that I put the word out that this was there and people started taking it. So I don't think I have any red state respondents in there. But before 6, 25%, 50% before 10, 75% before 12 or 13. That's a lot, even in a sex-positive population of people turning on or noting, being connected to, coming alive in their sexuality, often well before puberty. I don't have the slide here, but the next question was, at what age did you start masturbating to this awareness of your fantasy and desire? And in that one, I think it's well over 40% before 12 years old. And so like maybe 15% by 6 and another 12, so some number like that, where people are actually going for, an orgasm based on this story that they entered and were engaging in, even without being able to conceive yet or reach the official age of, sexuality. So these are all, for myself, pretty thought-provoking notions, and I think important information to start be gathering to deal with people's authentic sexuality and helping them untangle of shame and guilt, especially because they feel, a lot of people who turned on that way were not, that's amazing, that's great. They were like, don't you ever do that, talk about that, show that, and not right away they're cutting off from their authentic expression. So this was back to my idea that this is an innate, inherent part of who they are. Self-reporting 70% that their authentic sexuality rose independently of whatever happened to them as a child growing up. And this is just some of the range of a list of possible expressions of eros that somebody might be interested in engaging with out of the 700. This is the percentages of each interest level for that particular activity. I didn't put that, but you can see 17.7% had other that they wrote in. That's also on the survey, but I didn't show it there. But so people, this is just like the start of the list. People really went for it and have revealed a lot of interesting expressions that you can see 82% plus are into some level of dominance and submission in their sexual expression. Now, some people actually do even take that into their lifestyle and look for relationships that are oriented in that same way. But for most people, this is, I think the bigger chunk of the population is simply in the bedroom, so to speak, in their sexual expression. They desire some version of that. So, there's some pretty edgy elements of one's sexuality I can see that is showing up that people are just fine with. They can't wait. They love it. They hope that they can get to express this level of sexuality, find a partner that they can engage this in with. So there's 40 questions on the survey overall, and the survey is anonymous, and if you take it and you opt in, you can see the results of the survey as well. And it's pretty fascinating stuff to see the results, but to keep the anonymity, it's separate from, when you opt in, is separate from what the data that was collected, so there's no connection to your email or ISP address. Yes?
So this is a list of all of the things that people are showing interest in?
Yeah, 700 people filled this out, and out of the 700, 82% said they're into dominance and submission.
Okay, does the 35.6% that say rape, does that bother you at all? Because it's not rape if somebody says, like, this is
No.
what they're going
Yeah,
after.
so it's a ritual engagement of this persona that wants to be raped or taken, you know. Over 50, if you look at the research, over 50% of women across the board, their main fantasy was around being abducted or raped in their fantasies. That doesn't mean they want it, that's certainly not what they want in the real world, but in a ritual, an erotic expression, this is the report that they gave. I'm not encouraging this, what they're saying.
I'm just wondering if you think that there needs to be kind of a rephrasing of that, because that can be kind of really triggering for some people.
I put disclaimers before they take the survey that this is, opt-in. I have any trauma or concern about what might show up here, don't take the thing. So this is for, and that's a good question. I appreciate that question. But in honesty, out of 700, I've not gotten anybody who's written me and said, oh my God, I couldn't believe you put that on there. So so far, it hasn't been a concern in terms of the population taking the survey. And I'm sorry if that I didn't think about that context in this room here, and I didn't mean to be inconsiderate of that.
I don't feel as inconsiderate.
I'm sorry?
I don't feel as inconsiderate.
Okay, thank you. But I respect that if someone that's a trigger for sure for people who have real life trauma, or can be for someone who has real life trauma in that regard. And there's a lot to untangle when one has gone through that experience to get to their sexual authenticity. And even in the survey where people do self-report that they've been, and about 30 to 40% reported that they had been violated. I asked the question, did you have any sexual violations before age 16 that were non-consensual? And that was about the number, 30, 40% did. And again, that earlier slide was still the result. And most people, and I asked that specifically, how has this affected your authentic sexual expression at this stage of your life? And some, definitely are still affected by it, and others haven't, have moved on or been resolved, healed, and it had nothing to do with how they're operating in a kink-oriented way currently. I'm going to close this. I have one more here. We're going to close, and then I want to open it up for questions. Thank you so much for all the patience you've had. So if I can leave you with anything, it is this idea of your open-mindedness, trusting your own insights and expressions, and ability to listen and hold space for someone. If you really want to be caring as a therapist, if you can listen to that person and respect who they are and what they are, you're well on the way to becoming a great therapist right there. And that means helping them or treating them and helping them achieve their own dignity, by respecting the person and encouraging and blessing them for the coming out and trying to resolve whatever is stuck or conflicted in them so that they can not miss out on this amazing experience of your sexual authenticity. It's the depths that can be available and the expression of who you are and the intimacy and connection with your partners that you can achieve when you can reach these deeper states of sexually authentic expression and engagement with partners are something we have just cut ourselves off from as a culture, and it's really unfortunate because it is a tremendous journey into the self. It's empowering to be that honest and authentic. And you're going to be healing anything that's resolved, been traumatized by previous experience to get to that place. So it's kind of a win-win situation where you get to resolve all that's been in conflict or traumatized around it, and you get to be authentically who you are. So bless you all for inviting me here, first of all, and for sitting so patiently while I went through all that information. And it's been a great pleasure to sit with you all and carry on this conversation. Now we can begin more of a conversation. If there's any questions, I'd like to open that up. Or
change the lighting while you're.
oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Any questions come to mind? Yes, sir.
So on the prior slide where it had others, please specify for an option, have there been a consistent type that have been included?
Do you mean, would there have been like 5 more that had most all of the?
Or for people who are clicking the other box and typing in something specific, has there been anything that has had multiple, I guess, the same answer for people?
Well, by percentage, yeah, but I mean, haven't compiled that. What I do, I'll update the survey if I see like, a bunch of people are stating something, I can start to feed it back into the general list. But I mean, it's a broad spectrum of what people are interested in. There's also a place where I ask people to offer some sound bites from their personal erotic myth. And probably about 40 or 50% opt in to do that, and you can hear their expressions going wild. Yes?
Okay, I'm interested in being a foster parent.
Yes.
And I know from taking care of children that they speak pretty candidly about their bodies, about sexual desire. I think in the past I haven't known how to respond to that. And just been like, okay, not really probably getting a good sex positive environment. I'm wondering, for people who take care of children or raising children, what are a couple good ways to, any quick tips about not discouraging sexuality and responding to it appropriately?
Yeah, I can't give you an easy answer or a specific answer, but as you noted yourself, first thing is not shame them, not make them feel like whatever they said was horrible or bad, or don't ever say, that kind of energy. Your energetic is a lot of how you can handle it. Say, whoa, one, you might inquisite, so what did you mean by that, or what were you thinking about that, and not just shut them off. So the two things, you have to be a responsible adult in the situation and hold boundaries, that really are your choice. Trust your instincts to hold the boundaries, or get advice, ask for support around it, inquire deeper, but let them know that, so it's hard to say without a context of, depending on what they're saying, it might be different that what I would respond to, but keep them in a positive place around that desire is something that, is the adult level when you get to it. It's really it's kind of a strange situation because, we have this cultural norm where puberty happens way earlier than the culture allows sexuality to happen or sexual expression. So, you've got people in all ranges of development that is going on. Some people are maybe ready to engage at a younger age than others, and others are not. Maybe some of us adults are still not ready. So there is this, those are tough questions. They're difficult questions, but I think I leave it more to the person to figure out what's right for them and their family and the values that they have and what they want to, what keeps my child safe, what keeps my child unharmed, and how can I be honest or as honest as I can. And, I held a workshop, or I led groups of teenage boys on these rite of passage weekends for a number of years, and this was the hardest piece on the weekend before I got there, was holding the sex talk, with these teenage boys, because they didn't want to talk generally, and the adults didn't know what to say, and so I just opened up the conversation. I started leading that parts of the weekend and just asked them, so what's the right age for you to start having sex? I left it in that way. And that just opened the conversation up, and they had a great conversation, and they had high integrity. They were very smart. They were very curious and inquisitive about what others' experiences were, or wanted to know. Then it opened up about STDs and all the, consent and, alternative sexual expressions. And these people are pretty sharp and are making their own choices. Somebody says, well, I don't want to have sex till I'm married. Another guy, oh, I've already got a kid, which wasn't a good thing, but he was all, because it really kind of brought things to a sober place to recognize, yeah, having sex has responsibilities and consequences to it. So these, that's part of my, that's as best I think I could answer that. Did that get you somewhere?
I wrote down energies and quick.
Good. Yes?
About the sexual fantasies that are probably less socially accepted, for example, father, mother, son, daughter,
Yeah.
and other categories, like, do they ever translate into more of a reality setting? I mean, does it just translates? And if it doesn't, then
What do you mean by a reality setting?
Meaning, like, if I participate with my partner and I just ask them to role play as my daughter or
Yeah.
something else, then would I eventually, at some point, when I have a daughter, have those sexual tendencies?
I haven't found any evidence that anyone who has a daddy-daughter or a mommy-son fantasy has any desire or interest in interacting with their own real mother or father or their own real children. This is a psychological structure in them that has, again, it's a mystery why we have these things. Why is someone a homosexual or gay or lesbian? Why do you have blue eyes? We don't have knowledge of a lot of what we are, who we are yet. It's still very unmapped territory, but I feel totally clear after 15 years. I've never run into that, someone saying, I don't know, I'm really feeling a lot of attraction to my real father now or my kids. So, and also, I mean, it's your personal, this is what I'm talking about. This is conscious engagement of our sexuality. That means we're staying in honor with our agreements and our humanity and our respect for others. So that's how you hold your edges. What are your values? I mean, I hear from even your own question, the question, could that happen? But that, yeah, you have no interest or desire in engaging your offspring yourself. But there's a concern, could it? So I think it's a good question, but I've never experienced anyone saying that that's really what their desire was.
I was curious what MTP was.
That's Masters of Transpersonal Psychology. Yeah. Transpersonal psychology is a branch of psychology that considers both sides of the coin. Besides dysfunction and disorder, what are the ecstatic states one can reach? Or what does one aspire to, and how does one get there? What are the yearnings of the soul? It considers that one has a soul, not just a biomedical bag of bones here that is programmed and only does what the program says. Yes?
Going back to what they were saying back there, I really like what Chris said about fantasies, like looking at them by taking the sex out of them, because I don't think they're usually about what they're about.
Who is?
Sexual fantasies.
I'm sorry, say the question again. I was hearing a little distraction.
Just to respond to what they were saying back there, we were talking about this in class, and Chris said, thinking about sexual fantasies and taking the sex out of it, and then looking at it, which kind of helps to see that sexual fantasies aren't usually about what they're about. Does that make sense?
Well, maybe. I mean, it could be, but I'm not sure yet.
Like, just because you're fantasizing about like a daddy scene or whatever, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with an actual daddy. That I think that usually just represents something else.
Yeah, it's a mythic archetypal figure.
Exactly.
So this daddy, quote unquote, in a DS-BDSM context is holding the energy of someone in authority, someone who can be tender and caring and sweet on the one hand, but also really strict or just, taboo, inappropriate. There's a charge to that inappropriateness too, of the bad daddy, showing up. So it's a combination. A lot of, daddy-daughter is in, if you looked at the statistics, it's probably the leading fantasy of women online in a site like FetLife or Collar Me, who are looking for a partner. They're looking for a daddy. That doesn't mean they have any desire to interact with their real father, but in this mythic, that's what I talked about. These are mythic erotic structures that hold archetypal personas that one is drawn to from deep within the psyche. And the interesting thing also in this is that they occur in dyads in the collective unconscious. That's why people can find this full range of sexual desire. They're finding, because in the gene pool, there's a counterpart to that erotic expression, mythically speaking.
Galen, I just wanted to suggest in terms of people's bladders, maybe we go about 2 or 3 more questions.
Yeah,
If that works.
yeah.
I've learned teaching 2-hour classes, the bladder runs out of about 1.5 hours.
Old hand, he knows these things. Yeah. So, were there any other questions?
What's your opinion of FetLife? Like from a, I've never been to the website, but I hear about it all the time.
Yes.
So I'm just curious from like a intro to FetLife, like what do you think about it?
Well, I think you're going to get a full palette of what's going on in the world of alternative sexuality, because every deviant of every stripe is, finding a home there, But, the overall tone of the site is, this is about consensual, negotiated, honest, authentic, conscious expression. That's kind of it isn't like this is a free-for-all. That's what I talked about, and now outside of, FetLife is one of the more mature sites, quote unquote. That's not to say everyone there is of that level, but I think it has more of an intentionality to hold this energy in a way that's more integrity. There's a lot of talk about consent and negotiation and newbie welcoming and introduction, this whole pathway that people can get into kind of to be supported more in their engagement. But yeah, we're a long way from being mature in our sexual expression. So you need to be very mature in how if you're stepping into these aspects with others or getting online, especially in doing it, you really need to approach it from a conscious, safe, keep yourself safe, keep the data checking up. So yeah, this is legit, all of these things need to be going. No matter, a lot of people, the desire is it is like being a teenager, you get so excited, oh, I can't. And then they run into something that wasn't what was represented because they didn't do enough checking and taking responsibility for making sure that it was a safe path to go down. So I'll just close with also, I have a workshop coming up later in March called being a sexually conscious and empowered man. It's a workshop just for men who are looking to own their sexuality and get real about it. You can find that on my website. So I guess we'll let you fly, and thanks so much for hanging out with me today. It was a pleasure.
I just think, Galen, that's an amazingly complex, deep, provocative topic, and the maturity and integrity that he speaks about that with is really inspiring to me. So, and you as a group, I think, did portray the same amazing sort of depth. So thank you to you and to all of us, especially to you. Thank you, Galen.
My pleasure.
See you Thursday.